So hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rachel Melito, and I'm the marketing coordinator at the Yale School of Management Executive Education. We hope you're doing well, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us for this Introduction to Yale CIMA Prep course, Investment Management Theory and Practice. This is our 8th year offering the program, and in that time, we've worked with over 3,000 candidates. Today, we encourage you to listen and engage. Please don't hesitate to ask questions because this time is really for you. Our program director, Jim Dobbs, is very knowledgeable, and this is a great opportunity to pick his brain. To ask questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can submit your question to everyone or just to me, but I suggest you send it to everyone as there may be similar questions in mind. If you have any technical issues, please send those directly to me via the chat. And now to introduce our program director. Jim Dobbs is CIMA certified. He is also CFP and CPWA certified. He was a financial advisor for 25 years and ran his own RIA practice before retiring to work full-time in his financial education company. Jim has worked with different certifying bodies and universities for the last 20 years, helping to build and manage financial certification programs. More importantly, though, Jim has had extensive experience with the Investments and Wealth Institute. He personally helped create the CPWA certification and has served IWI in many roles, including as chair of IWI's Technical Advisory Board. You will see he is very passionate about what he does. Jim is committed to success, and he measures his success based on yours. Please welcome Jim Dobbs.
Well, thank you, Rachel. That was a very nice introduction. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. All right, welcome everyone. Yeah, let's take about an hour, give or take, and let's walk through CIMA certification and then also what you can expect if you choose Yale as your education provider and test prep provider. We, of course, include both in our program, which makes us a little bit unique from others. But yeah, feel free. Anything's fair game. The only caveat I'd throw in there is if it's super personal, like, hey, Jim, here's my backstory, and like, is CIMA certification right for me? I'm happy to have that conversation with you, but let's do that aside from this information session. So you can just send me your email, and then maybe we can set up a time to talk, and I'll give you my contact information a few times along the way. So yeah, let's talk about the certification, and let's talk about the process and what you can expect, including how much time would it take. Let's talk a little bit about the exam, which of course you have to pass to earn certification. Now, the first thing I want to do is talk about IWI and just differentiate here for a minute. I think most of you probably know who IWI is and have been to their website, but IWI owns and manages this Certified Investment Management Analyst CIMA certification. And it's really more of an elite certification. Certainly the earnings of those who hold CIMA certification are higher according to Cerulean Associates, IT Group, and a few other third parties that I've seen research on. You can get some information off of IWI's website there in case, and I suspect some of you are like still trying to convince your superior or boss to allow you to do this and or to reimburse you for it as well. But CIMA certification is really for, I would say, just about all investment professionals. There's a little exception to that I'll hit in just a minute. But if you're an investment advisor, consultant, financial advisor, financial planner, bank, investment, insurance, sales or service professional dealing with securities, dealing with investments, asset and wealth managers, etc. Now, the focus, of course, is just going to be on investments, unlike like CFP and CPWA, which include investments and a whole lot of other things. This is just investment specific. Back to IWI. So go to their website if you haven't. They're your certifying body at Yale. We provide an education course that has been registered and approved with IWI. And then we also include test prep, and I'll spend a fair amount of time talking to you about that. I think that's in part what makes us different from some of the others. Our asynchronous model also does that as well. You're going to start and stop when you want to. You're going to be at your own pace, and you're really going to register when you're ready. We don't have traditional enrollment periods where you have to come in certain weeks or months. I think is a fantastic organization. I was a practitioner for 27 years, had my own RIA for 20 of those the last years. And that's when I found IWI. I just really appreciated their focus on the deeper dive. Let's just get beyond the surface and let's really get in there. Let's really get in the weeds and sharpen up our technical skills and our behavioral and psychological skills. And that's what initially led me to them. But if you're not a member, you're not already associated with them. Well, you will be if you go through CIMA certification, but you ought to check them out. They've got a lot of great assets and really social networking opportunities as well through that organization. All right, I do want to mention, at least briefly, they still have scholarships at IWI that are available to CIMA candidates. And as you can see here, I mean, look, if it started like $100, I probably wouldn't even bring it up, but they started $1,000. So I think if you see any of these criteria on the left who is eligible and you think, well, maybe, I think it's worth 10 minutes to fill out their application for a scholarship. Now, I will say this, I don't know all the details, but I have been led to believe that there's a pool of money they have in any given year. And so it ebbs and flows. And I think they even do it on a quarterly basis. I'm not sure exactly the timing, but like you could apply now and they're out of money for the quarter or something. You might ask them when is the best time to apply. They may not, or may not be able to tell you. But again, if 10 minutes is the only cost and you think any of these might apply, I'd do it because I mean, if you get something, it's at least $1,000. So I think it's worth checking out. And you would do that, by the way, before applying for candidacy. It's not the end of the world if you got approved and then you went through the process, but it's much easier according to my candidates that said, yeah, when you do it in order, you apply for scholarship first and then you apply for candidacy. Okay. The certification process, it's not really complicated. It's challenging, and the content and certification exam are very rigorous, as we'll talk about in a little bit. The process is easy. Submit a CIMA candidacy application online. It's fully online, and you will choose, if we're a good fit for you, you will choose the Yale education program and one of the drop downs when it comes to education provider. So you'll actually choose your provider right there on the application. You'll submit it. They will review it for completeness and accuracy with your background check, which is usually like a U4 if you're in the investments industry. If you're at a bank or a trust and you don't have a U form, there's some other background checks they can do. Just make sure that your application matches up with your regulatory disclosures and document that they're going to pull up, because that's what they're going to check it against. Once you get approved, they're going to say, hey, Jim, congratulations. You have been approved as a CIMA candidate and you have chosen Yale in this case. And so we're going to send them your name and they're going to reach out to you and get you all set up. And once we get you set up, and I'll talk about timing in a little bit, then you're going to go into the program and you're going to do the course first. And then once you pass the course, you're going to move into part 2 or part B of our program, which is just all about the cert exam. And you're going to prepare for and hopefully pass your CIMA certification exam on your first attempt. The great majority of our candidates at Yale do. And I would hope that you're not going to be an exception to that. And then once you pass the certification exam, they're going to reach out to you by email and say, hey, congratulations again, Jim. We see that you have passed the certification exam. And so now here's where we need to do another background check, and you complete licensing agreement, pay your first certification fee, which you'll then pay. Well, you have an option with IWI. You can pay those every other year, or you can pay for a little extra benefits. You can pay once a year, half the cost. Excuse me. All right, let's do a little market comparison or designation comparison, and then Rachel will see if there's any early questions. So CIMA, CFA, completely investments. CFP, CPWA, financial wealth management, including investments. And CPWA, we do have a sister program that we also run at Yale. I do for CPWA. And one of the reasons I chose CIMA and CPWA is they're both accredited. And I think that's really important because if you look at the FINRA website, There are something like 187 financial designations. It is, shall I say, ridiculous. It's crazy. I'm not saying there's not value in most of those. I think there's probably some value, but we kind of have alphabet soup, and I think it confuses the public. So I would encourage you to find a certification where the content is a match. We'll go through that in a minute, but also where the certifying body is well known and established. So CFP Board, Investments in Wealth Institute, Kaya Association, CFA Institute. I think those are all really, really strong organizations, and they employ rigorous standards for the certification. So I think any of those are fine. And don't get me wrong, I hold other designations as well. I just don't put them in my profile and what have you. I mean, maybe they were good for some education or learning. I just don't see the need to put all of those in my public profile. So I'm not saying you shouldn't do those. If you think that will help, go for it. Okay, so with CIMA and CFA, I want to juxtapose those. That's the caveat I mentioned at the outset. Look, if your plan is ultimately to become an institutional portfolio manager, like I want to manage $1 billion plus fund, for Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Schwab, Fidelity, Nuveen, PIMCO, whoever, then CFA is the route you ought to take. You at least are going to need those skills to be successful. So why not go ahead and just get your CFA charter while you're at it? If you're going to be a securities analyst, where pretty much all you do every day is go through data, largely quantitative, and decide how to rate or analyze a security, a stock, a bond, whatever, and determine whether it's a buy or sell, it goes in the portfolio, or it needs to be removed from the portfolio, et cetera, in support of the portfolio manager, well, then that's a CFA track because you need all those skills. If you're a chief investment officer, a CIO of a big bank, a brokerage, or a large wealth management or financial firm, then I think CFA is what you ought to pursue. But for all of the rest of us, pretty much, I think it's CIMA. And professors at Wharton, who no longer offer CIMA anymore, but professors and practitioners 40 years ago said, hey, I don't think all the investment professionals need to do CFA, which was already around, because I think that one started in the 60s. And they said, let's create a certification which is still rigorous and still quantitative by all accounts, but it just doesn't cover the scope and the depth that CFA does. So you can see there, to get through CIMA, 6 months is the target or less for our candidates. It's not because it's easy. It's just there's less material to cover. CFP is about 18 months, give or take, on average, and CFA is 4 years plus, because most of those candidates fail at least one of those 3 exams at least once before moving on. So I don't want you to think that, oh, it's 6 months or less and it's easy. No, it's hard. It's just there's not as much content to cover. Look, you do need to have 3 years of financial experience to earn your CIMA certification, but that doesn't mean you can't start before you hit that magical 3-year number. That being said, I wouldn't think like you're just out of college or you're a career switcher and you're like, hey, investments industry, that looks fun. That looks interesting. I think I want to give this a shot. I've never taken an investment course. I haven't taken my investment licensing exams yet. Well, that's probably not, I mean, if you're really ambitious, okay, but it's probably not the best time to go for CIMA just yet. But if you're a year or 2 or more into the industry, and you've taken an investment course at least, or your licensing exams, that'll at least give you a little bit of a foundation so that not everything is new to you. And we'll talk about how that could impact your expected time of study in just a minute. All right, I'm going to let you stare at this overview of the curriculum. And Rachel, let's see if we've got any early questions.
No questions yet, Jim.
Okay, well, don't be bashful, guys. This is for you, so you just throw them out there. Love to get any of your questions on the certification, on where the industry is going, the Yale program, whatever. Okay, so fundamentals is a little bit of a business school review. So that's the first domain, as IWI calls it. Just think of that as like a major section of content. So statistics, a little bit algebra, applied finance, economics, and then history of the global markets. And that's really like, think history of investments, asset classes, stocks, bonds, those kind of things. and their history of returns, risk, and correlations to each other around the globe. So that's kind of what that history lesson is for you, which wraps up fundamentals. Then we'll get into what you're probably more familiar with: investment assets, asset classes, investment vehicles, stocks, bonds, alternatives, including real assets, options, futures, derivatives, a little bit there as well. Now, that being said, I did want to mention, because I mentioned Kaya to you earlier, I think Kaya is a nice what's next after you do CIMA. If you're, again, it depends on where you are in the investment space, but if you're dealing at all with alternative investments, yeah, we're going to overview those, but we're not going to focus on it as much as I think you need to know for industry. So I think for many of you, maybe most of you, after you do CIMA, you would go on and do Kaya. Portfolio theory and behavioral finance is third, right in the middle. And I love that about 10 years ago, they put those two together. Behavioral finance has been in the curriculum for a long time, but the certification commission, from a content standpoint, lumped those two together. I like that because I think portfolio theory does get a bit of a bum rap. There's a lot we can learn by studying traditional portfolio theory. I don't know of anybody, and in my 27 years, I don't think I did. I don't know anybody that uses modern portfolio theory as it is or as it was to build portfolios. That's just almost not even practical or possible. But it is a nice foundation. And then there are a handful of other theories and studies that I think are very important to know so that we can analyze all the different options we have, from strategies to methods to structures to asset classes, and how they might fit together or not very well. But then we need to lay the psychological on top of it, right? Because I learned early, fortunately, but unfortunately, I guess, well, it was painful, but fortunate. I can know anything and everything about investments and building a great portfolio or making investment recommendations to a client. But if I can't control my own emotions and my own behavior and help my clients do the same, then none of this really matters anyway, because the clients are going to come and go pretty quickly. Or I'm going to undermine the efficacy of the portfolio because I made bad decisions. So I think getting a handle on that is really, really critical. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time helping you do that. Risk and return is, as you would imagine, it's mostly quantitative in that section. And so we're really going to kind of get into the numbers pretty heavy there. We're going to look at a number of different ways to measure and analyze risk, and then risk-adjusted performance returns as well, and look at how those work together and which metrics you might use in specific situations. I think this is also helpful if you're an investment advisor like I was for all those years, and got the wholesalers and investment salespeople coming to me all the time, trying to get me to include their funds and their products in my portfolios that I managed. I need to be able to cut through that. I need to be able to ask better questions and get past the surfacey discussion. And if you're on the other side of that, because about 30% of our students, our candidates, are on the sales side, I want you to have a lot of good information, not just listen to what your company tells you to say. I want you to know what these metrics are and how they can be used and what the limitations are, so you can have a better dialogue with the advisors you're trying to sell to. So I think it works both ways, and just need you to get a little deeper in terms of your technical competence there. And then Domain 5 just kind of brings it all together. There's actually not a whole lot of new technical content in that section. It's just going back and taking just all the things that you've learned and then going into deeper client discovery based on that knowledge that you have, building portfolios, making investment recommendations, creating a process to sell and service your clients, including review and revisions kind of on the periodic side as well. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully that helps you realize. I'll look and see if we had anybody drop off. Nope, nobody dropped off. So maybe you're in the right place. A more detailed look is this thing. It's the detailed content outline. It's part of the CIMA core body of knowledge, as they call it. It's got the exam weightings on it, which is pretty cool for all the 20 sections. So there are 3 to, I think it's 6 sections in each of the domains. And there's about 500 topics. So here's my big request or recommendation for you, for those of you who are not yet sold or figured out that CIMA is right for you. Spend 10 or 15 minutes, go down it's now a 6-page list. You can send me an email and I'll be happy to send it to you. It's on our website too, but if it's easier just to shoot me an email tonight or in the morning, I'll send you that topic list. Just go through all of those line items and ask yourself, in my job right now and where I want to go in the near term, will learning more about this concept or application help me in my practice like right now? Service or bring in new and better clients and serve them more effectively? Will it help me? And then by the time you get through all of those line items, your intuition ought to be telling you yes or no. Like if it's like, well, I don't know, maybe half of it, well, then I probably wouldn't do it. I mean, the money's one thing, but opportunity cost, you're going to spend quite a bit of time with us, is another thing. So I probably wouldn't do it. But if it's easily over half, it's 2/3, it's 3/4 or more, like this will help me turn the corner, this will help me get to the next level, then the content is a match. And I think you can check the box safely there. So shoot me an email if you want a copy of that current, it's now a 6-page PDF. Formula sheet, I did want to discuss the math just a little bit with you because, if you didn't hear me say anything and you saw this formula sheet and the next page, some of you might freak out. The math majors of you and the finance majors of you, yeah, not a problem. But I know not all of you fit into that category. You will have this 2-page formula sheet available to you when you test. It'll be in the computer testing software, so you'll just pull it up when you need it. Every once in a while we hear of a testing center still passing out two pieces of paper with the formula sheet on it, but regardless, you'll have it. So you don't have to memorize these, but you do need to know what all of these are, when to use them, what the output tells you, compare them against each other. Because a common question would be, okay, Jim, here's the scenario. You're managing money or making recommendations for a client. Here's the setup. Here are your constraints. And let's just say you need to replace an active manager in the emerging market small cap space, whatever. And then here are the 3 funds you've narrowed it down to. And here's a bunch of statistics or metric outputs for each of them. Which is the best based on what we just told you and the information we gave you? Well, you'd need to know which formula to plug in. Again, you don't have to memorize them, and they're all going to be in front of you with the labels next to the formula, so that's helpful. But if they're going for outperformance, for example, and that's your core, because you've narrowed it down and checked the box on everything else, but outperformance over time with consistency is what you're looking for. I think outperformance, I think alpha immediately. Jensen's alpha is a good way to do that on a risk-adjusted basis, but information ratio specifically is designed, it's not perfect, none of them are, but it's specifically designed to measure outperformance over time with consistency. So that's the kind of level of knowledge you'll need to have of these formulas. Now we go through every single one of them. I think there's 54 or 56 on these 2 pages with the derivations of them as well. And there are about 8 to 10 not on the formula sheet that you should know for your exam because they test on those regularly as well. We're going to go through all of those in our test prep material. We'll go through many of them in the course portion as well. So I think repetition is really going to help you in this particular area. And then lastly, I'll mention on math. When I got this certification, which seems like a million years ago, but a while ago, I would say about 40% of the exam was either computational or math related. Maybe not all the questions had me do a calculation or use one of these formulas, but it was math related. So if I understood the math, I'd be able to get to the answer. It's not even half of that right now. I'm going to say about 15 to 20% after several pretty big revisions to the curriculum and exam over the last, I'd say 10 to 15 years. That's when the big changes have been. And I think that's partly because we have machine learning, not just calculators, but Excel and all of our company programs that we can use for the math. But I would say 15 to 20%. So I think you will have probably 15-ish calculations to do on this exam, and then maybe another 5 that are not calculations, but math related. So hopefully that helps in terms of what you can expect. Now that should not match up with anything that your friends or colleagues tell you about the exam, if they got the CIMA certification exam like 15 or 20 years ago. Very different exam, very different process. A lot was different back in those days. So if you're listening to people about their exam experience, you really only want to listen to those people that took it in the last few years, in my opinion. Okay. Program goals and objectives, and then we'll open it up for, well, it's open for questions, but I'll field anything that you want to talk about. I think it's important that you know what we're trying to help you do. Just like you want your clients to know what you can and can't do for them, same kind of thing. So we definitely want to deliver coverage of all the 500 plus topics, either in the course, in the test prep, or both. We're not going to do all of those because it's really about 1,000 when you add the important subtopics. It would take forever to get through the course and then do it all again, but in a different way in test prep. So we're going to mix and match those as I think is best from a practical standpoint, and then ultimately for studying for your exam. Help you develop, this is to me the most exciting one because this is the game changer for those of you who can get there in your practice. Develop knowledge, tools, skills, resources for your job right now. Can you do a better job? If you're already managing money and you're in the business 10, 15, 20 years, which we have a lot of candidates in that space too, and that's when I took my CIMA course and certification exam. I was already managing money on a discretionary basis within my own RIA. It was good just to challenge myself. Do I really know why I'm doing this, or why I'm choosing these kinds of funds and not these kind of funds? When I'm using active, when I'm using passive, when I'm using enhanced indexing or factor models, and can I defend that in a strong way? And then it did open my eyes to a few things that I probably need to take a new look at because I hadn't looked at or considered those investment options in quite some time. So if you can develop practical, applicable skills, that's what's going to change in terms of your practice. Don't get me wrong, having CIMA after your name is going to look really good and impressive. Being associated with Yale for the rest of your life is going to be very impressive. But getting you those new tools and skills and knowledge, I think that's probably the most important thing here. And then last but not least, I was one of you as well, before I retired and just started teaching all the time, is passing the test. And as you get closer to your test date, you come in the program, you knock out the course in a few weeks, and you start doing test prep, and then you're ready to test it month 4 or whatever. As you get closer to that test date, you're going to be, look, I'm going to download and I'm going to watch a lot of this stuff and go back and watch it again, but I just need to pass this test on my first attempt. And I get it. So that's what we do. We're going to start out big and broad in the education component. And then when it gets to test prep, it's all about the exam. And I'll explain how we do that in just a minute. Okay, I'm going to let you look at structure and details. And Rachel, would you check and see if we have any questions?
Yes. How much time do participants have to access the program materials?
Yeah, so perfect segue right to this slide. So as you can see here, you're $59.95, you're roughly $6,000. That's going to get you access to the Yale material, the Yale program, for 1 year. Now, let me step back for a second and say, don't be confused. IWI has a 2-year candidacy window. So you come in and you get accepted as a CIMA candidate right now. You've got 24 months to complete your certification, everything except for your experience requirement, that is, and then you're good. If you don't, then you got to pay additional fees, and you may even have to start all the way at the beginning, which, yuck, don't let that happen to you. But that's the 2-year rule. The 1-year rule is that's how long you have access to our content. And we didn't want to go 2 years because it shouldn't take anybody even a year. I'm going to say 6 months or less, and I'll show you kind of the breakdown of that in just a second. But just know, as a safety net, you don't really have to buy that additional year of access for $22.50 if you run out of time. And sometimes running out of time is a good thing, right? Your business got super productive and you brought in a ton of clients, and you had to hire new staff and train new staff and all that. So I get it. Sometimes that happens. But you could just pass the online quizzes that we have at the course level because you do have to be online for that. And then once you pass that, all the test prep is going to be available to you and only at that point. And you just download everything because you can download, copy, save, and print anything you want in our program as long as you don't share it with anybody. And for heaven's sakes, don't put it out there in the public domain, like on a website or something. So as long as everybody's playing by those rules, we're going to continue to make this open in terms of the content. You can take what you need. So really, all you need to do in that year is pass. Right now, it is 11 quizzes to pass the course. And then you could just download everything to your hard drive in terms of test prep. Now, as I mentioned before, no start date. You're going to get in there and apply for candidacy and start our program whenever you want. I think that's really important because if you're like me, there was some seasonality to my practice. With that many clients, you can never predict when a client's going to call you up with really great news or really horrible news, and you're just, you're all in for them at that time. But a lot of the other stuff was seasonal. We did some fair amount of tax work, and so, starting a program in January, February, March, off limits, deal killer. Couldn't do that because I'm tied up on the tax side until the first deadline of April 15th. But you're going to look at your schedule and just look out over the next several months when you think you might be ready to apply and say, does my schedule look any worse over the next several months than it normally does? Like it's hectic, it's always hectic, but does it like really look tough? If that's the case, just wait till your schedule clears up a little bit. But if you're like, it's always hectic and this doesn't look any worse than any other time, okay, great. Just go ahead and jump in, apply, and get going. Okay, I did want to mention this. I think I mentioned it earlier. We do include full test prep with our education course, and together they make up our Yale program. And that's what you're getting for the $59.95. There is no need to go out to any other content provider, test prep provider that you want. IWI does offer some test prep for free, and then I think they have a pay up thing as well. Our candidates have regularly told us through the years, nail down the Yale content before you look at anything else. Anything else is just supplemental. You can be successful just by mastering the Yale content. So I just want to give you a heads up there. All right, so back to kind of features, benefits kind of thing, flexibility and convenience. So the idea was create an online program where you start when you're ready. You control your own pace. There's no travel. It's asynchronous. You don't need to show up on a Tuesday or a Thursday night or a Saturday morning. You don't need to complete assignments or pass certain tests in this month or that month. Remember, you just got the year. That's your big constraint from a time component, and everything else you do inside that is customizable. Really study at your own pace, fast or slow. 14 days is the record. I'm not challenging you. That was obviously an exceptional candidate. So from the day he signed in to our course to the day he took and passed the certification exam, just 2 weeks. I simply say that to let you know you can get through the course and test as quickly as you want to and or able. It's totally up to you. Now, I don't want to rush you. And some people are going to be like, nope, Jim, I know it should only take me about 4 months to finish the whole thing. But I'm going to take 8 months because I really want to digest as much as I can. I don't really get an opportunity very often to get down there and get deep into the weeds and learn like this, especially at a place like Yale. So I'm going to not take my sweet time, but I'm going to be more methodical, and it's going to take me longer than the 6 months that you recommend. No problem with that. Soak up as much as you can. You'll be the great beneficiary if you take that route. I mentioned download, copy, save, and print. So you should know what that is now. And then study whenever and wherever you choose. Remember, the only thing that you really need to be online for is to take our course level quizzes. I'll talk about those in a minute. Well, and then you'd need to be online to download everything. But other than that, you could, you could download all the videos and watch them via MP4 when you're not online, or convert those to MP3 if you just want to listen to them. So really meant to be maximum convenience for you here. All right, and then lastly, kind of clean in some things I've already talked about on time expectations. 100 to 200 hours is very normal. Now that's a big range, but you guys are all over the place when you come to us in terms of your experience and your existing knowledge. We have 20-plus-year-old investment professionals that have been managing money on a discretionary basis, and literally they build the portfolio in their firm. And then we have individuals that are 1 or 2 years out of college and into the business. Maybe all they've done is their licensing exam, so they're starting to get comfortable with this. And this is a pretty heavy lift for them. It's going to take them longer. If you have significant learning challenges or disabilities, I think it's certainly going to take you 200 hours or more. And every once in a while, somebody will say, Jim, I'm pushing up on my year and I'm certain I'm over 500 hours. And it could be because they were new, or they just didn't have focus when they were studying, or learning challenges and disabilities, those kinds of things. So there is quite a range here. But 100 to 200 hours, I think comfortably for most of you, that ought to be the expectation. But again, the bottom line is I want you to be able to move fast or slow. It's up to you. And because it's not synchronous and you're not in official cohorts, those of you trying to fast track this are not going to freak out the people that are going slower. And the people that are going slower for whatever reason, totally fine, are not going to be frustrating the people that want to go fast. You just get in there and go as fast or slow as you want. All right, speaking of the course and learning tools and the progression and expectations. So kind of part one, part two. Part one is the education course. CIMA does require a registered education course completion, just like CFP does. CFA and CAIA do not. It's all about the exam. But with CIMA and CFP, yeah, you got to pass a course first. It's going to take you about 30 to 40 hours, as you can see here, to get through our education course. And mostly that's video lessons. Now, there's over 2,000 pages of readings that I have for you in my textbook from Wiley from a few years ago, and a few other texts that I like in this space. And you'll have access to those. We don't send you printed copies of anything. You just download what you want. You'll have access to those via PDF versions. And I do encourage you to take the deeper dive when you want, but I realize, having done this for 20 years now, most of you prefer video and seeing exercises and examples and like little fact patterns and that kind of thing. So that's how we're going to teach you mostly. Going to go through the videos and use the readings as a supplement, not as a primary learning tool. And then you're going to take those section tests or quizzes. 11 of those online, not proctored. There's a couple of different strategies that I show you right at the beginning once you get in the program with us, in a video and a couple of recommendation sheets for how to work those. Because I think there's actually a couple of different ways to go there. But we did need some way, since you're not in class, you didn't sign in, and all that stuff. We need some way to assess that you're building a nice foundation before you get to the test prep. So once you pass your 11th quiz or test, we're going to get an email notification, and then we're going to send you one and say, hey, Jim, congratulations, you passed the course. We're sending your name to IWI, and they will send you information on the test, the CIMA certification test process, and how to get all scheduled. I'll talk about that in just a minute. At that point, you'll have earned your Yale certificate because you passed the course. Now, remember, this is not part of a degree program. This is not offered for academic credit. It's an executive education, professional education type of program. But you're going to get your Yale certificate even before you sit for your certification exam. And all the test prep now will be open to you within the Yale platform. You'll see it when you're at the course level. You just can't access it. So I'm teasing you a little bit there. But once you pass the course, then all of that is open and available to you. And so now there's actually more content in the test prep because I'm going through really all of the material, the 500 to 1,000 topics. And we're still going to focus on videos. So there's going to be video test prep by me in all 20 sections where I go through the line items and give you a list of what IWI has been testing on most in the last year. Just a way to help you narrow the focus, right? That's a lot of topics for a test that's only a little over 100 questions long. So I really want you to be efficient, not just effective, but efficient in your study. So I'll do short videos for you in all those 20 sections. Here are the things I want you to nail down in these following test prep slides that you see here. And those are spread out over the 20 sections. Really nail these things down. These things over here, I would read through these slides, but they have not been testing on it. So just review it once. You're probably good because you probably won't see it. And then there's the middle squishy section. Like, okay, and then these things, they're tested regularly, but not all the time. So I don't know, 50-50, 60-40, 40-60, whether you'll get one of these. So you should review these, but they're secondary. Primary is these highly tested concepts and applications. You better know this because I think there's a good chance you're going to get something like this. So you're going to go through 1,500 test prep slides. I think right now it's like 1,700 actually, over 1,000 practice questions, including multiple full-length mock exams. I did want to mention a couple of things on the practice questions. I'm a great believer in certifications, not licensing exams, but certifications. I'm a believer in quality over quantity. I could give you 2,000 or 3,000 questions, easy, not a problem. But I don't want to do that. I think that's a disservice. This is not about seeing a lot of questions like we all did in our securities exams and kind of memorizing them because the test prep provider could almost swear you're going to see that question and magically they were right, like even almost word for word. CIMA, CFP, CFA, they don't work that way. FRM, they don't work that way. You really need to understand this material because most of the questions are going to be comprehension based, not memory or recall. So I need you to go through all of my questions. All of them are important. All of them there by design, including the mock exams questions. But I also need you to read through those slides. Those are short summaries, little vignettes to really help you nail down the comprehension part of it. I want you to be an active learner. And if you do that, I think you're going to have a really good shot at passing this exam on the first attempt. Okay, speaking of the exam, 120 questions, you can see all multiple choice. 110 are scored. So like all certification exams, there's going to be some beta unscored items that you don't know which ones they are, right? They sprinkle those throughout. I think, and it's according to most of my students through the years and then myself when I took the exam, I think at least a handful of those are going to jump out at you because you're going to be like, I don't remember seeing that anywhere in the Yale material. This must be a beta unscored item. I mean, still give it your best shot, but 110 scored items, 4 hours to take the exam. You can take it at testing centers or you can take it at home. Either way, I give you some guidance on which I prefer and why in our course. I'll tease you a little bit there. Calculator, you will need a financial calculator. Statistical calculators are not allowed on this exam. On the candidate handbook, which I'll send you if you want to email me for that as well, they have the current list of all the calculators that are available. As you see here, among my candidate, now I use an HP 12C, which is kind of old school, and I wouldn't get this one if you're just doing the CIMA Cert exam. The learning curve's kind of tough. I mean, it's a great calculator. I think it's maybe the best, but it may take you too long to learn reverse Polish notation. So if that scares you enough, look at the HP 10B2 and 10B2 Plus and the TI BA2 and BA2 Plus. Those are the more commonly used calculators. You can go to tvmcalcs.com if you don't have a financial calculator or you need just extra practice. I would do that before you come into our program or in the early weeks, days of being in our program. Professor out of Colorado, totally free site. Wonderful. You're just going to go in there and really most of the common financial and investment calculation examples or questions, if you will, are there for like 20 different financial calculators. So unless you're using just like a really obscure one, yours is going to be there. And he shows you just like keystroke by keystroke. And they're all different. And that's why we don't do it in our program. There are just so many of them. So go to his website, get caught up, get brushed up. It's a great primer, tvmcalcs.com. And oh, by the way, if you need to get a calculator for this exam, he even has a page on there, and you can see the link right on the course or the website homepage, how to choose a calculator. like what you're taking CFA, you're taking CIMA, you're taking CFP, whatever, and he gives you his thoughts on which he thinks is the best calculator for each exam. All right, where's my help? I'll let you stare at this and let's see. Come on, somebody's got to have a question. I know there's not that many of you out there, but somebody's got to have a question for me. I guess we did have one earlier on the time constraint. Any questions, Rachel?
No questions, Jim.
All right, well, let's keep plowing through here. Looks like we'll finish up a little bit early and then we can have a free-for-all of questions if you guys want to do that. I'm fine with that as well. So it's a self-study course, not for academic credit. But where's my help? Is there help? Yes, there is help. So if you have administrative logistical questions, I forgot to save the URL. I don't remember my password. How much time is left in my candidacy? How much time is left in my access to the Yale program? You know, things like that. Just reach out to us, and we've got all of that contact information on the homepage and syllabus once you get into our program. And those staffs are available, my staff and Rachel's team over at Yale, available 8 to 5 Eastern, Monday through Friday. Canvas has their own tech help. Now, we actually have a one-pager in your homepage and in your link through your syllabus as well. Canvas is one of the most popular learning management systems or platforms in the world. It's one of the reasons I chose it for this program. It's very solid, very stable, and things very rarely go wrong with it. But the only time it'll freeze is when they're doing a scheduled routine maintenance at 2 in the morning on a Saturday morning or something. So I think you're going to like it in that respect. And it's an easy learning curve to get through. But Canvas does work better on some operating systems than others. It works better, certainly, with some browsers than others. Now, it does work not just for IBM type machines or computers, desktops, laptops, but Apple's as well. Apple, the iPad, and then the Apple, what are they called, MacBooks. That all works. So shouldn't be an issue there. Now, is it the best? No, I think it's definitely better in a traditional computer, but it works just fine. The only caveat to that is phones. So I wouldn't plan to spend most of my time in this Yale course on my phone. If you want to just read and see the updates and my announcements and that kind of thing, or like remember where you were, even read some simple documents, I think that's fine. But taking tests on a phone, I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, you can, but each phone and each phone's operating system is different, and they certainly do not update for all of those. There's so many of them on a regular basis. So the phone's the only caveat there. Discussion board and study groups are great. So I love our discussion board. I learned a long time ago, if you set up a discussion board and manage it well, it can be a great asset for your students. So I leave up the best technical questions and exchanges, whether it's a student or Eric or me as your faculty that works with you guys on content, just so other people can use that going forward. So you're going to see a lot of discussion in there. And so like if you're in chapter section 17 and you'd like to have a question, the first thing I would do is go into the discussion board, do like a Control F search on your keyboard and see, like for CAPM or behavioral finance or factor models or whatever, see what the discussions are in the past. And I'll leave those up for several years if I think they're still up to date and very helpful. So I'd do that, or just ask the other students, your colleagues, your cohort members, if you will. You know, I'm having trouble with this. Anybody got some thoughts? Study groups, you can form those. We're not going to put your contact information or name in front of everybody for obvious confidentiality reasons. But if you want to reach out and say, hey, this is Jim, I kind of like to do an informal study group on Thursday and Saturday morning or whatever. Here's my contact information. Reach out to me if you're interested. I see that pretty regularly, so feel free to do that. And then finally, ask the expert. I think this is very important. There is a limit. Like I said, this is self-study. You have a 12 content related question limit. So not on the administration or technology or study plans or anything else, but on content, you definitely have a limit. We're not priced or built to offer that ongoing interaction with a faculty member. That being said, that's not an arbitrary number. We beta tested this for the first year or so, and sure enough, then is the same results we've seen every year since. Less than 5% of our candidates reach out and ask even their 12 questions, let alone want to ask more. Less than 5%. So, yeah, I'm probably being generous in the 12 question limit, 12 content related question limit. But suffice to say, if you're one of those individuals like, yeah, but Jim, I really want or need that regular, maybe not constant, but regular interaction with instructors. I need that constant give and take, that back and forth. Then nothing wrong with that. Absolutely, I understand. But this is not the program for you if you think you're going to fall into that learning preference. But again, study plans and strategies, no limit on those. Eric wants you to feel really good about your plan, the timing of your plan at the education level and at the test prep level. So you have a good plan, you just work the plan and focus on the content. So what we usually do on those is start those by email, but Eric will have a phone call or a Zoom with you just to make sure you really feel confident in the plan that you have put together. All right, great faculty. There's several other individuals as well. Toby is fabulous. I've worked with him for, I think it's over 20 years now. Not just here, but the University of Chicago, where we both were before. We both, interestingly enough, ended up over here at Yale. And we worked on a number of certifications and conferences and other programs together. But he is fabulous. Look, if you just want to get an idea, because he's going to do most of your teaching at the course level, especially from an academic. This is a nice little link here, a little fireside chat with Toby. Just kind of gives you a little insight into his personality because you'll be getting most of your learning from him, in terms of hours anyway, at the course level. So that will give you a good idea if you think he's a good fit for you in terms of learning styles and preferences. John Nersessian is outstanding. He is a great communicator and teacher. He was an advisor like you and like me for many years. Now he just does training and education. And I have him in the program because he's a practitioner by history. And so he understands and sees things differently like we do as practitioners. And I think that's really helpful. We have a legend, Roger Ibbotson, Dr. Ibbotson, who, if you're like me, you probably got some books on your shelf like I have behind me that have his name on them. And he does actually most of the, let's go through history and look at returns and risk and correlations of different asset classes in different countries. So it's just a pleasure to have him on the faculty. And then, like I said, we've got 3 or 4 other individuals on the faculty as well. You can go to our website and see the full list with the full bios if you're interested or if it's helpful. All right, I won't bore you with all the feedback, but it's really important to us, both qualitative and quantitative. We track about 30 different things, even though we've been doing this for a long time and many thousands of candidates. We're not perfect. We never will be. What we want to do is understand your learning styles and preferences as a whole and meet most of your needs most of the time. If you're an outlier, there's only so much we can do, but most of you, in my experience, it's fairly predictable of what you're good at coming in, what you're going to struggle with, where we need to give you extra help, and how to do that. And so we are constantly getting feedback from you guys. I'm talking with y'all every single week of the year, even the holidays, after you've taken the test, pass or fail, just to see what you saw, what you didn't see. There are certain things we can't talk about, like exact wording of a question, but everything else is pretty much fair game. I want to make sure our test prep in particularly is getting candidates where they need to go, and I think the pass rate is a pretty good indication of that. All right, so when you're ready to get started, you can go to our website, but we're just going to send you over to IWI's website. In the CIMA homepage, there's an Apply Now button, and you can click on that and you start your online application. Again, you're going to choose Yale Education and one of the drop-down boxes when it gets to the education provider. Takes them about a week to process your application, run the background check. They're going to send your name over to us when they tell you, hey, congratulations, you've been approved as a candidate. We just sent your name to Yale. And it takes us about a week, give or take a few days, to get you up and running. There is a process. And I mean, both of these organizations are formal And I like that because that means this is legit and it's rigorous and it's important. And so it's about 2 weeks, give or take, in total from the time you submit your application to the time you're actually up and running with us in our course. And then lastly, just our contact information. Any questions you've got about Yale School of Management, Executive Education, Rachel will be happy to answer those questions. You see her information here. And then if you want that detailed content outline from me or the formula sheet and handbook, shoot me an email at either of these two email addresses. I'll be happy to do that tonight or in the morning. And just one last link to our Yale CIMA program webpage, which has got lots more information on it as well. Okay, so with that, I'll stop rambling. And I think we've got a few minutes for questions. Rachel, do we have any?
Okay, yes, we do have, oops, sorry, my phone is ringing. I don't know if you can hear that. I apologize. But, so there is one question here. It says, I work in government and wanted to transition into finance. Should I discourage myself from enrolling? I like the independence of the program, the advanced level of study, and prestige of the program. Any suggestions?
Yeah, good question. This one you may want, I'm going to give you my thoughts here in just a second, but you may want to reach out to me by email with a little more information. For example, one said you're interested in going into finance. Well, what part of finance? I mean, investments obviously is just one component. If you're not for sure it's investments, I would not do this one. If you're like, oh yeah, it's finance and it's personal finance and it's investments, okay, then you're probably on the right track. Now, that being said, if you've never taken an investments course before, this is, I'm going to say, intermediate to advanced. There's definitely a fair amount of advanced in this course, so it could be a struggle. You may want to get your legs under you before you go for something like this. And keep in mind, if you're career switching and you don't have a background in this area, even if you go through our course, pass the CIMA certification exam, you will have to wait till you have 3 years in the business before you're allowed to use the certification. So I know I just threw a whole lot at you. Hopefully that helps a little, but if you've got a follow up or more details, happy to have that conversation with you. Just shoot me an email and let's talk. Rachel, any more?
No, that's it for questions.
Okay, well, Rachel's going to close us up here, but hopefully this was helpful. I know we covered a lot and we did a lot in the last hour, but look, it's an important decision, not just for the money, but for your time, opportunity cost. I want you to make the best choice you can. I hope it's with us and I hope it's to go for CIMA certification, but if it's not, that's okay too. I just want you to make the best choice for you. Rachel?
All right. Thank you so much, Jim. And thank you to everyone for joining us. For more information, you can visit our website. I popped it right into the chat, or you can reach out to either me or Jim with any additional questions. This webinar, including the video recording and the slides, will be shared in the coming days. While we hope to see you in our program, we truly hope that you find a program and path that's the best fit for you. Thank you again for joining us. This concludes the webinar.